Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can, and welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes sir, yes ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues or just a friendly conversation, no topic is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. Friends and family, welcome back to another episode of Porch Matters. I'm glad you're here. 20 years ago yesterday, the deadliest terrorist attack in world history took place. 2,977 people were killed. 19 hijackers committed murder-suicide. 6,000 others were injured. 4 planes were hijacked. 2 hit the Twin Towers in New York. 1 hit the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and 1 crashed in Pennsylvania due to heroic efforts made by the passengers and crew to retake the plane. The actions of those hijackers and the people responsible for putting the plan in motion were the reason why the U.S. went to Afghanistan in the first place. To stop terrorist cells meant to hurt us, or so we were told. We as a nation took a shot that one could argue 20 years later we never really got over. We realized that an enemy could actually hit us on our soil. Citizens began to live in fear, and the government, not letting a crisis go to waste, began feeding that fear. 20 years later, not much has changed. Government is still trying to take our freedoms, and citizens are still willing to give freedoms away for the illusion of safety. But that's another podcast. I would like to honor those who lost their lives on September 11th with a moment of silence. "20 years ago today, we had something happen too that sticks out in everyone's mind that was alive at that point in time for opposite reasons. Starting September 12th and lasting for several months, this country was the most united I have ever seen before or since. No one cared if you were black, white, Hispanic, or Asian. You were simply an American. Couldn't find an American flag at the store because they were all sold out. Patriotic songs were played all over the radio. While thinking about September 11th still makes me angry, thinking about September 12th makes me happy. Maybe one of these days we can all become united again. I just hope it doesn't take a tragedy to bring us together. But that too is another podcast. On this episode, Dustin Sapp of the Morale Project comes on the show and shares his powerful, inspirational story. When you listen to this, if you think of anybody who needs to hear this message, share this episode with them. I'm not trying to get downloads whenever I say this. I'm saying this from one human to another who likes to help people. This message is inspiring. And if you know anybody who's struggling with what we're fixing to talk about, they might be able to get something out of this, and that might be able to help them out. So please, share this episode with somebody if you think they need to hear the message. Without any further ado, let's get started. Dustin Sapp, welcome to the porch, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, man?
Any better? I don't guess I could stand it. I do believe in the now 30 some odd episodes that I've had, this is my earliest interview. So congratulations, my friend.
Nice. It makes you young getting out of bed early.
Even though this is not an interview, this is a conversation. But yeah, usually it's a little bit later on in the afternoons. But hey, I'm all for it. That's great. We'll get the day started.
Nice and early is the best way to do things, man. Get you motivated from the beginning and make the rest of the day progressive.
That's right. So how's life in Florida?
Hot. This past week has been anywhere from 93 with a real feel of 105 to this morning at 6:30. It was 97 with a real feel of 106 and 3.5 inches of rain. So it's been it's been interesting.
Florida is one of the most interesting states I have ever been in my life.
It's the most bipolar state that I know of.
Yes. Yes, it is. One minute it's sunshine and bikinis. The next minute there's a thunderstorm rolling in, or then hurricanes come in. Yeah, it's just great. It's always an adventure.
I walked out the door this morning and was like, oh, I'll just do a 3-mile run and go home and take a shower and I'll be good. It started raining. And I looked behind me and lo and behold, behind me, it was clear and sunny. I was like, really? This is how you're going to do it? You're going to rain when I run, and then on the way back home, it's going to be hot and sunny? Nice. I love that.
If the weather or the gators don't get you, it's going to be the people on the bath salts.
Bath salts and mosquitoes, man.
Yeah, the mosquitoes are pretty big down there, too.
They'll carry you away. It don't matter how big you are.
How long have you been in Florida?
I was born and raised here, actually. So going on 33 years now. I was born in Madison County, which is out by like Live Oak, Lake City area. And then moved to Jacksonville. When I was born in 88, like 91, 92, I think. And I've been here ever since. So, I mean, it's different. I don't like it. I want to go back to Madison. I want to go back to the woods. I feel like that's where I belong.
Too many people in Jacksonville?
Yeah, way too many now. Over the past 15 years, it's probably built up more than Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Daytona put together. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, honestly. There used to be small parts of town where it was like living out in the woods, and now it's like living in New York. It's ridiculous. It honestly is. And it's just not something that I'm fond of. I don't want to raise my kids in a big city. I want to raise my kids in the woods like I was. Just teach you different morals and values and respect for what's around you and how to adapt to it. I mean, it's a whole different type of living when you grow up like that. It honestly is.
I agree. I've been to Jacksonville one time, and that was to get on a cruise ship. So I didn't really get a chance to explore around much. What is there to do?
Nothing.
What is there to do? Yeah, well, I was going to say, what is there to do in Jacksonville other than go and watch the Jaguars game?
Eat and go to the beach. I mean, there's so many places to eat here. That's probably one of my favorite parts of Florida is you got a lot of chain restaurants, but you also got a lot of mom and pop shops that you don't get to visit out west or in your area or up north, because the food culture down here is so much different than what it is everywhere else. I mean, it's honestly like a broad spectrum from sushi to your fresh Key West lobster to, I mean, it's just the sea life here is immaculate. So your choices of food are pretty much endless, honestly. I mean, that's my favorite part about here is the food. And obviously there's the beach. I mean, who don't love sitting out by the ocean water? I mean, honestly, that's
right.
One of the most peaceful things I found in my life is just going to sit by the water when nobody else is out.
Do you prefer the Gulf side or the ocean side?
Both, only because the water temperatures are different. So, like, for instance, last Christmas Day, actually, my kids did Christmas morning and all that. And I don't do the whole big family dinner thing. We never have. So I went out to the beach, and I think I surfed Christmas Day from like 5 o'clock in the afternoon to almost 9 p.m. The water temp was like 76, I think. So, I mean, that's probably my favorite part is being able to do that on Christmas Day, where a lot of people are snowed in or got 17 different layers of clothing on and 4 different heaters going. I'm outside in shorts and no t-shirt with flip-flops on, just moseying around the beach like a lunatic.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. If I was down there, I'd be doing the same thing.
I mean, it's my favorite part about being in the South is the weather is the rain is unpredictable, but you know that you're going to get all 4 seasons in like a month. So it doesn't really, you don't have to worry about 17 inches of snow on Monday. You just got to worry about 17 inches of rain.
Yeah. To answer my own question to you, I honestly prefer the ocean side over the Gulf. I've got the Gulf, right here, but in most instances, other than maybe Clearwater, the sand, that nice, beautiful white sand that everybody talks about, I'm 400 pounds, so I sink. You know what I'm saying? Whereas
Yes,
on
sir.
the as long as on the Atlantic side, I don't sink as bad on it for whatever
Yeah, it's this
reason.
side's more this side's more hard sand. It's not so much sugar sand. I think the reason for that is because of the way the tides pull.
Yeah.
And you got that Gulf Atlantic stream that mixes in, and when it mixes, it don't really bring a lot of the Gulf sand with it. So it stays pretty much hard packed. So I mean, it's definitely a nicer beach to be on because, like you said, you don't worry about sinking and losing your vehicle. Or I mean, there's people that still do that because they're dumb, but that's just a whole nother conversation. That really is.
Yeah. So what do you like to do whenever you're not doing your normal job other than go to the beach?
I spend probably 90% of my free time helping out other veterans. I mean, that's just something that's near and dear to my heart because I've seen some shit, done some shit. But when you come home, it's a totally different ballgame. It's not combat. It's got a whole different aura to it because of the different aspects of life and the human mind that comes into play. It's not like you can just put a mission together, get 6 guys, load up on weapons and ammo, and get your gear on and just go. It's not that easy, unfortunately.
Right.
So I spend a lot of my time doing that with research and outreach. And I mean, it's just that consumes probably 90% of my life outside of work and my family time. It honestly does.
What got you involved into reaching out and helping veterans?
So when I served, I got deployed a couple times. And obviously at that age, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, you see some things and do some things that normal human beings shouldn't have to do. I mean, let's face it, it's not, I mean, yes, it's in our nature to commit those acts because we're humans. Like, we all have that instinct in us. Like, it's just bred into us throughout time and generations. But when you come home and all of that builds up and then it just explodes and you watch friend after friend take their life and then you attempt to take your life and it changes who you are as a person and it makes you look at things differently and find a purpose. I mean, in 2019, I sat on my back porch and at that time I had a 2-year-old daughter. I sat on my back porch, put my 45 in my mouth and pulled the trigger 7 times to try to kill myself because of everything was building up and I failed to reach out to somebody for help. Instead of asking for help, I was like, oh, I'll just take care of myself. And yes, I know it's like I'm still here today, but that wasn't by my actions. It was by something greater than me. Some people believe in God. Some people don't. I truly believe in God. If he's the one that made what happened happen for a reason. And so now I share my story of suicide and my alcoholism and my drug addiction to try to help others to see that they're not alone. And that's not the way to take care of what you're dealing with, whether it be combat PTSD, whether it be childhood abuse PTSD, or anything of that nature where you mentally isolate yourself and your thoughts and feelings. That's not the way to go about life. It's not, because you're never going to win.
No.
That is a war that no human being will ever win.
A lot of people, they whenever, like you said, internalize stuff. They feel like that they've been in situations where it doesn't matter what they say, nobody's going to understand unless they've been in your shoes. I'm glad to see that you're here. In my beliefs, I'm also a Christian too. You've still got a purpose. You've still got a mission in life. The Bible says whenever he speaks over you, his words won't come back to him void, meaning whenever we're born with a purpose in life, and your life is not going to end basically until your purpose is fulfilled. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I highly agree with that. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that have their own stance on religion or belief, and that's their right to do. And I completely respect that and understand that. I mean, that is why
Absolutely.
most of us wore a uniform. I'm
Absolutely.
never going to push something on somebody that they don't want to believe in, but I will push to the fullest extent and with every ounce of blood in my body that internalizing things will kill you faster than talking about it. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if you've been to combat or not. It doesn't matter if you've been beat up as a child or not. It doesn't matter if you dealt with alcoholism or drug addiction. If you just sit down and listen for 5 minutes, you can literally save somebody's life. You don't have to say, I understand. You don't have to say, oh, I'm sorry. You don't have to say, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. All you have to do is listen.
Right.
Listening is 98% of a conversation. It honestly is,
Yeah,
because
it
it
is.
takes one side to listen and one side to talk. And with that listening part, you're never going to get an understanding of what somebody's going through, but you're going to get an understanding of how you can help. And to me, that's why I push don't internalize anything. That's why I push be the difference, because so many people want to talk. Just be quiet. Just listen. Just be willing to listen. That's all you have to do. And I promise you, the outcome of that conversation will be 10 times larger than what you expected, and you will actually be able to help.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. If you want to dive into it a little bit more, what led you to the point where you had a 45 and you pulled the trigger 7 times?
So after I got out of the Army, I was like lost. And I'm not talking about like losses in I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, or losses in I didn't know what job I could even implement my military experience into. I'm talking about lost mentally to the point where I didn't know what I believed in. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to mentally even wake up and be productive. My mind was so clouded with horror and war that it was just an everyday thing of battling myself. And so I dove into alcohol. And then once that started to become to the point where it was like you drink so much and then you black out, but then you wake up and you feel like crap still. It was like there's got to be something else I can add to this to where I can continue to stay numb, like even throughout the day. And so that's when I dove into heroin, and I was just like hooked immediately. I mean, there was no like, oh, that felt great, I'll do it again in a couple of days. No, it was like, oh, that felt great, I'm going to do this every day now because this helps. And then after about 4 years of that came 2017, and I found out my daughter was going to be born. And that's when I was like, all right, I can't do that. I can't live life like this. I'm literally killing myself and going, my child's going to watch me go in and out of rehab, in and out of jail, in and out of like highs and lows. And I quit. I went to mental institution after mental institution, rehab after rehab. And now I'm 4 years sober. But in 2019, all that sobriety was cleared my head to the point where my emotions and thoughts came like full force because there was nothing clouding them. It was a free for all, basically. I got so stressed out, so depressed that I would, at that time, I told myself I would rather watch my daughter grow up from heaven, no, or hell, knowing that I was not going to hinder her growth as a person and not put my problems onto her to where she had to try to deal with them at such a young age also. So I was like, oh, I'll just take my life and just end this story, and that'll be that. And all the problems that I could cause in her life would go away. When in fact, that's not the case. One,
No.
that's not what happened because I'm here talking to you now. But two, two, it brought back a conversation my dad told me when I was really young. And he always said, never give up on anything in life, because no matter what, whether you fail in it or whether you succeed in it, somebody on the other side is going to take something away from it and continue pushing forward.
That's right.
So now my daughter's 3, she turns 4 in December. And every day when I get home, she runs to the front door. And to me, that makes everything that I went through worth it. So now I take what I learned and what she sees, and I try to put that on other people to where they can see that they're not alone and they're not the only ones that go through mental issues that can hinder them from doing anything.
There may be somebody listening right now that's in a similar situation. They may not have done anything yet, but they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it hard. What would you say to them?
I mean, I know it's cliche, and there's so many ways you can have that conversation with somebody. But if I only had limited seconds to say something to somebody that was thinking hardly about ending their life in any form or manner, just stop and take a look around you. Because if you take a look around you, it's not going to affect just you. It's going to affect everything and everybody around you. And then now they have to pick up the pieces. And that's not fair.
I use that similar line, and whenever I talk about anything and everything, I use the rock in the pond example.
It's a
Drop,
ripple effect.
drop a rock in the pond, the ripple It goes all over the pond. It don't just affect the spot that it hit. It affects the whole pond. And I always equate your circle, whether it would be family, friends, whatever, anybody that you care about, fit them in your circle. You know, it don't just affect you; it affects the whole circle.
Yeah, it does, and in a dramatic form and fashion too, because now you've taken your mental state and you didn't end it for yourself. You've now put your mental state on everyone around you. So now the chances of somebody else doing it because of the actions are higher. So in my personal opinion, I feel like if that's something you do, you are taking the life of others around you also. And that's not fair. And that's not right.
No.
Like at all, in any form or fashion, is it okay to do that? Yes, I know life gets to that point with people, whether they're veterans, paramedics, truck drivers, for instance. My dad drove a truck for 21 years. Moms, I mean, I know moms go through mental stressors as well. I mean, it all relates in some form or fashion. It all relates. Everybody can be an advocate, honestly. Anybody can. All you got to do is just want to listen. It doesn't take a special person to listen to somebody's problems. Yeah, doctors help. I'm not saying they don't. For some people, they do. For some people, they don't. And that's why you surround yourself with other people that are willing to listen. And I feel like that's the key to mental health issues. I mean, you could throw medication at anything. Hell, I throw ibuprofen at my kneecaps every daggum day. And yet every day they still hurt. So it's not going to fully solve the problem. And yeah, it helps. But surrounding yourself by people that are willing to listen, that right there, it's a whole different ballgame. It opens up so many doors. It honestly does.
Getting back to your story, because it's a powerful story. You hit rock bottom. You just fired 7 rounds. They didn't go off. How did you dig yourself out?
At first, I blamed everybody and everything around me of why what I wanted to happen didn't happen. And then I did the one thing that I was always told by everybody else around me in the military is reach out. And so I got on my phone and I just started calling numbers and calling and calling and calling and sending messages and sending messages. It took me about 45 minutes. I mean, it's not always going to be easy. People do have lives. People do have jobs. People do have other outside things going on where they can't just drop. But when I did get in contact with somebody, I think I spent 7.5 hours on my phone that day. I think I killed my phone twice actually and had to plug it in multiple times just so I could keep talking. And I mean, it once I got done with that conversation, I don't think I slept for a couple of days. So I was just trying to grasp what I just did and what I just went through.
Yeah.
And then that was where I put my foot down and told myself that it would never happen again. And I wanted to make sure that nobody else would go through that. And so ever since then, I've literally dedicated, like I was saying earlier, almost 90% of my free time to making sure that others are okay. Rather it be in Alaska, rather it be in Australia, rather it be in Jacksonville, rather it be in Alabama, rather it be in New York. I don't care where you are. Phones have no state limitations.
Nope, they sure don't.
They honestly don't. They don't cost you $150 for a plane ticket or $500 in gas to drive here or there. You don't have to go anywhere to get help. And I didn't realize that until after I got off of that phone call. And then when I did, that was when my whole perspective, not just as a parent, but also as a human being, like changed. It wasn't a light switch. It did not happen that fast. It did not happen that easy. It took some time, but when it changed, it was like my boots just did not unlace. And they're still laced up to this day. I mean, that's just the way it happened for me.
So other than making phone calls and being there for people, what else are you doing to help veterans or help anybody?
Get outside. Oh man, I probably have 30 or 40 studies done by John Hopkins to Mayo Clinic to hospitals in the UK to hospitals done in Australia, with studies showing that getting outside improves your mental health by 60% for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, get outside, dude. Find somebody that can run or walk with you. Hell, find somebody that can go to the beach and sit down with you. Sit on the porch. It doesn't matter. And that's funny I said that because your podcast name is Porch Matters, but
I'm sitting on the porch right now.
It's honest. Like, sit outside. Go outside. Quit closing yourself inside in isolation. Isolation will get the best of you, and it will always win. Get outside. Like, get the kids. Like, I hate packing kids up. I do. It's like it's a freaking nightmare because you always forget something.
Yeah.
But my kids, I get my girl in a stroller. It's a wrap. She does not want to go back inside, so we walk. I mean, we walk. We just walk with no purpose, no reason. We just get outside. I mean, I've learned that over the past couple of months with a group of people that I surround myself with. They get outside very often, and I don't want to say they're okay because I'm not a medical professional, so I can't sit there and say, oh yeah, you're mentally fine because you go outside. That's not always the case, but it will help you by exerting physical energy out of your body. Like those toxins that you hold inside your body will release itself through sweat. And I mean, it does help. It helps me a ton. So find something to do outside. Go eat brunch outside. I love food. I freaking love food.
I'm a fat boy. I love food too.
If you offer me to go sit outside and eat some food, bet I'll be there in 30 minutes. I mean, whatever you're interested in, like, go do it, but find a way to do it outside, man. It's two birds on one stone when you get to that point. Like, when you can find something that you can do outside and get outside together, I mean, that right there is awesome. It honestly is, because like I said, you get to kill two birds on one stone, and then you'll see the difference because your mood's going to boost dramatically, instantaneously. It will. I mean, it's almost, to me, getting outside is almost like drinking again. Like, as soon as, for the people that drink, you know what it's like. After you get off of work, you hit that Crown and Coke, or you crack open a Busch Light or whatever, and that first sip is like refreshing. That first sip is like, yes, I am home. I am relaxed. I am whatever. Like, it's just relaxing. Getting outside and doing something you like at the same time is exactly the same thing. It's the same exact feeling. It releases the same dopamines and serotonin in your brain that doing something else, rather be drinking a beer or fishing on the pond or building something. It's the same exact feeling, and it will help tremendously. It honestly will.
You made a post on your Instagram page, and it is at Morale Project. Everybody that's listening to this that's on Instagram needs to go follow him. PTSD is not a choice, but stigma and ignorance are. Can you go into a little bit of detail and explain that? Because I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So PTSD to a lot of people is like, oh, you went to combat, you must have PTSD. 9 times out of 10, that's true. But if you look at a typical mom that's walking out of Target, I'm willing to bet that 8 out of the 10 moms that walk out of Target have PTSD. Another word for PTSD for moms is postpartum depression. PPD is very serious. PPD also has the same tendencies as post-traumatic stress disorder. Your body changes every day. So when your body changes, like for women, it's like hormonally and emotionally and physically, that affects your mental capability. Putting a stigma on PTSD, saying that you have PTSD, you're now disabled. I want to know you're not disabled. You are not disabled from doing what you did yesterday just because a doctor today told you you have PTSD. Stop putting a stigma on something that it might not be curable, but there's ways to combat it. There's ways to make it easier, to make it better. And the ignorance part of that post came from people who don't truly understand what PTSD is. PTSD can stem from a multitude of factors that still haven't even been proven, that there's only a few. There's a ton. There is a ton, from abuse to sexual assault to sexual harassment to rape to traumatic events involving combat, police officers, paramedics, they see stuff daily. That will cause PTSD. Moms going through a rough pregnancy where they have a stillborn, that will cause PTSD.
Yep.
I mean, truck drivers, dude, I rode with my dad for 6 months one time, and I've seen more accidents on the highway and more scattered bodies at the age of 15 than I ever did in my life until I went to combat. Normal jobs can give you PTSD.
Yes.
It is not something that you just get from combat.
No.
Stop acting like it's only a combat related mental health issue. It is not. Yes, it is predominant in the combat veteran community because of the things you do and see in combat at such a young age, but it's not just there.
No.
You have to start with yourself. You have to start with the ones around you that you see the signs and symptoms of. Stop acting ignorant to something that's classified as people in uniform when it's not. It's classified as a guy with, for you instance, with the cutoff sleeve t-shirt, with his hat backwards, driving an 18-wheeler. You don't know what that guy's been through on Tuesday when he rolled through New York and seen an ambulance flipped over and seen a Honda Civic laid up under it. You don't know. You don't know. I watched the U-Haul truck literally hit the back of a flatbed Peterbilt and got the whole entire cab cut off of it.
Yeah.
Everybody and anybody can get PTSD from traumatic events. Stop putting a stigma on it that it's only with people in uniform, and stop having this ignorance behind label on it that it can only come from combat. Yes, it is predominant in the veteran community. Absolutely 100%. Yes, it is predominant in Leos and paramedics. But the ones that nobody focuses on is the moms, the truck drivers, the delivery drivers who drive around literally all day long and see accidents. Those guys need help too. Stop acting like only one select group of people need help. Everybody needs help. I honestly believe that if everybody could see that and stop labeling it as a disability, a lot more could get done.
I do too. And labeling it as a disability also, this might not sound politically correct or anything like that, but I'm just going to say what I feel. People these days look to play the victim card way too much, good, bad, or indifferent. And what I mean by that is sometimes we see stuff, sometimes things happen to us. We can't allow those things to dictate the rest of our life. As the old saying goes, you got to play the hand that was dealt. You know what? You see what I'm saying? You've got to acknowledge whatever's happened, get the help you need. That way you can move on and you can still be a productive person and still have quality of life. But it seems like in this day and age, a lot of people will say, well, I can't do this because of this, that, and the other, and just basically sit back and allow what has happened to them before to be the catalyst for them not to do anything else with their life. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, it does. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you can only play victim for so long, and I played victim for so long until I finally realized that I had to do something. And one of my biggest inspirations and one of my favorite people to interact with on social media is Earl Granville. I mean, the man lost his leg in Iraq, and yet he's out there kicking ass every day.
Yeah.
He does not make excuses for himself. And through his physical hinderings, he still comes out on top. And every day he strives to do better. And once I met him, my whole entire outlook on what I have going on with me seemed almost like inanimate. Because it was like, damn, you deal with what I deal with, plus you don't have a leg. And yet you're still out here deadlifting 250 pounds and running 5-6 miles and running the Boston Marathon and carrying people during the Boston Marathon. And I'm sitting over here sometimes complaining because I can't sleep. Like, how does that work?
He's a machine.
I mean,
But
Theoretically, yeah. In theory, yeah, he's part machine. But
Yeah.
yes, PTSD and different mental health issues, they're different with everybody. I'm not saying
Yeah.
everybody's going to be the same. You're going to
No.
react differently.
Yeah.
But
It affects everybody differently, and everybody's personality is different. This cat that you're talking about is a alpha, is an alpha's alpha.
yeah, I mean,
Whereas,
there's no way around that.
yeah, whereas other people aren't that type of person.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got his own story that he shares a lot, and I'll save that for him to share because that's his story. But it's definitely a story that if you're listening to this and you never heard it or don't know who he is, you need to look up Earl Granville and listen to his story because a lot of what he said resonated with me, and I took what he said to heart. That's when I was like, I got to stop trying to self-loathe and take all this energy that I'm putting into beating down on myself and get better and be the difference and help others. And that's really honestly where it all started, was meeting him. And I mean, every day now is a challenge, but I know that it's a challenge that I'm not doing alone. And that's what I love most about my community and the type of people that I surrounded myself with is you're never going to accomplish everything you want to accomplish by yourself because you're going to have a helping hand, even if it's just one time. So let that one time that you need help be the time that changes everything.
Where can people find you on social media?
Morale_project on Instagram. I haven't got a Facebook set up yet. Still working on a website, but you can find me on Instagram. And I mean, if you need resources, I have them for days. If you need an open door that is going to be clear of retaliation and judgment from leadership, employers, husbands or wives, fathers or mothers, brothers or sisters or friends, I don't care if I don't know you from Adam. I've got no place to judge anybody. Just come in. We can have a conversation. I can call you on the phone. We can talk for days. I can give you resources that you may need help with physically, mentally, financially. I mean, if there's a resource, I'll find it and I'll spend every inkling of my time that I have free to find it and to make sure you get the help you need. That's really the purpose of my page and why it's as open as it is. Because I don't want to be another one of those vet pages that are like, oh, come buy my merch, come buy my merch. 10% goes here, 10% goes there. That's cool and all, and it helps. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of them that do great things with that 10%. But in all reality, at the end of the day, not everybody wants to buy a shirt. Some people just want to talk. Some people just want to read and learn. I mean, trust me, I have posts on my page that you can learn from. I have posts on my page that you can get resources from. I have posts on my page that you can laugh at. But to me, that's the point, is to give somebody that basic arena to where they can go into, and it is what it is. Like it's a free arena. If you want to come in and yell at me and cuss me out, hey, by all means, do it. If that makes you feel better at the end of the day, please do it. I spent 9 weeks getting cussed at by drill sergeant. Trust me, I can handle a couple of F-bombs here and there. I promise you.
The drill sergeants get creative whenever they're chewing you, don't they?
Yeah, it's a mental stressor, but it's also physical too. So the mental part I can handle of it, but the physical part was a whole different ballgame, that's for sure.
Well, Dustin, I appreciate you coming on to the show and sharing your story. And any way me or my show can help you spread the word for what you're doing, just reach out and let me know.
That's funny you said it, because last night I was on another show last week, and last night I think I got 17 messages from people. They listened to an hour and 6 minutes that I had on another show, and everybody that messaged me, I mean, there was not one thing about, oh, I'm going to listen to it later. I'm going to listen to it later. They were all messages of how me sharing something so confidential and so personal that it gave them that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, doing this alone with you, it helps more than what people understand. They're like, oh, you're just going on a show to talk about your feelings. Well, yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Because when I open up my feelings, you see that I'm a male. I was in the infantry in the army. Like, we're supposed to be these badass guys, like we are, but at the end of the day, like, we're humans too. And when people realize that they can open up to somebody that does something that a lot of people will not do, does it, like it's almost like, okay, this is okay to do. And to me, that's what it's about, is somebody seeing it, somebody listening to 10 minutes or the whole hour and just being like, holy crap, if this guy can do it, why can't I? Like, what's stopping me? It's yourself. Stop stopping yourself. I stopped myself for multiple years. I clouded it with alcohol and cocaine and heroin, and telling you none of that works.
Dustin, thank you for coming on to the porch.
Thank you for having me, Terry. I really appreciate it, man. I honestly do. Like this, it helps me along the way.
Honor was all mine. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sharing your story, and thank you for what you're doing to help others. It's very inspirational.
I appreciate it. I honestly do. Like it means the world to me. It does.
And like I said, any way I can help you, you let me know.
I will, man. I do appreciate it. And so many others appreciate it that you don't even know.
Big thanks to Dustin Sapp of the Morale Project for coming on to the show and sharing his story. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Make sure they know they are not alone and be there to listen. If you are new to the show and like what you hear, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button and download the episodes in our archives. If this show has been a positive addition to your life, please rate the show and leave a review. It won't take you but a minute, and it really would help the show. Find us on social media by typing Porch Matters Podcast in the search bar. Word of mouth is still the best way of sharing. Pick your favorite episodes and share it with at least one person this week. Believe it or not, there are still a lot of people out here in this world that have never heard of a podcast. I sure would appreciate it. And I'll see you next time, right here on Porch Matters.